Now, we're going to go to Brett. The first thing on a 5-day, the boat's been spec'd. It's, we have this huge checklist of safety that we go through before we leave the dock. The boat's got an MMSI number. It's got the compass is swung. The instructor, Brett's RWA Yachtmaster instructor. He had to attend a pretty rigorous 5-day course to get qualified, and has to update that every 5 years. So what's the first thing, Brett? What do you do with the food?
The food is kindly provided by Terry. It's all ordered online. It's sitting there at the marina usually when we get there at the CYC. So shortly after moving all our gear on board and getting our rooms organised, the food rolls up, and then we provision that, get that on board, get it on board so we know where it all is, and refrigeration, cold stores, what needs to be refrigerated, things like that down here in the galley. So fairly handy size freezer. This freezer, because we're only on board for 5 days, there's not a great need to freeze any food. So this freezer has the option of winding it back down to a refrigerator. So we use this and the upright fridge as our 2 fridges. And then there's plenty of room there on the left for our dry stores, bread, and cereals and all the other bits and pieces. So once that's on board, then we run through all the safety gear, which is usually found down both sides of the boat. There's an EPIRB there we can see in the corner, and down there we can as we walk down those stairs, this is where the majority of our safety equipment will be stored. Things like flares, we go through the flares, expiry date, how the proper use of the flares, your red parachute, your orange smoke, and flare, things like that. All through just, things like backup radios, and just all your basic sort of safety equipment. Once that's on board, then we get ready to go. So the good thing about the boats is we're on board for 5 days, and the boats, are big enough that there's plenty of room for everyone. We're not sort of like jumping over everybody. It's nice and comfy. So we have 2 cabins up forward, and hopefully we get a husband-wife team who can share one of those. Another cabin starboard aft, and I usually, we'll just go for a walk up here. So this is the port forward cabin. Nice big double there. So it's nice and bright and airy, plenty of ventilation. When you're on board these 5 days, there's a fair bit to take in, and you want to wake up each morning refreshed. You've had a good meal, you've had a good sleep, so you're ready to go again. So down the other side's a starboard aft cabin. So that's a great single bed for a single person on board. And then as we turn around, we go up forward. This is where we usually put, if we have a husband-wife team, we usually put them up here because then they have their own little ensuite up forward so that they can have this all to themselves. So there's plenty of space there to make yourself at home for 5 days. Because I'm such a nice guy, I usually just sleep up the top. I pull across this little footstool there, just on the right there, yep. So that just comes across and marries over into the front of that. And that's my bed for 5 days. And it's actually quite comfy. There's not a problem there, just stretching out there for 5 days.
Brett, just ask you about the toilets on the boat. On the 1260, how many are there?
There's 2. So
yeah,
this is the one that we share as well.
And I always get sick of pumping that bloody pump.
Yeah, both are electric. So that's those little buttons up there on the left.
Fantastic.
And shower. And just through that door there is our port engine. So access when we do our engine checks and just your basic checks for seeing, cooling and oil, that's the port engines through there. So that's where we do our checks for an engine.
Just one thing I note with using the head, we always say don't put anything in the toilet you haven't eaten first. And I've changed that rule. Don't eat olives. I think I mentioned that last week. Yeah, here I'm in Croatia last trip, and someone's obviously eaten the olive that's gone straight through the system. And of course, the little black olive nut breaks the impeller in the electric pump.
Right.
There's a little tip. And the first time that's happened to me, and I was out in the middle of nowhere in Croatia, and luckily I got it fixed. But there you go.
Well, yeah, luckily we haven't had to do any onboard plumbing in any of my courses as yet.
What?
Yeah, but if Brent can just go down to the base of the toilet there. Yeah, so probably just out of shot on the other side is yeah, there's a little macerator down there, and that's where most of your trouble is going to happen. Yeah, just in there. So that's the crux of the toilet, so to speak. There's a little blade that spins at high RPMs, and if something gets caught around that, well, it doesn't work, and it's time to get the gloves on.
And the COVID mask, I think.
Yeah, it's not a nice job.
No, it isn't. But that's why it's just so important, and it's important to brief your crew when you get on board, just to say, hey, this, you can spend 2 hours pulling these apart. And interesting enough, oh, here comes the thunder. I don't know where you are.
Yeah, I got that.
And we're going to get a bit of rain, which is good. We haven't had a bit of rain for a while. But there's just nothing worse than cleaning a head, but I've had to do it many times. But it's interesting, if you're buying a second-hand boat, the first thing you do is replace all the hoses in the heads, because you'll find that after 4 or 5 years, the interior of the hoses, the calcium, I'm not sure I'm using the right word, builds up, and it gets narrower and narrower and narrower. And you wonder why, the toilet isn't working. So if you buy a new boat, a second-hand boat older than 5 years, or even a charter boat that's been in a fleet, the first thing you do put on your list is, besides checking all your through hull fittings when it comes up, is replace all the hoses on your heads. And also make sure that you've got a map, particularly on the catamarans, because you've got a lot of through hull fittings like that go below the waterline, and you should have wooden plugs on every single one of those, because I've been hit by lightning in Sardinia, and lightning usually blows the seacock straight out the bottom of the boat, and rather than abandon the boat, you just look at the chart on top of your, where all the through hull fittings are, which is up near your nav cable, and send someone down there and put the plug in there, and you don't sink the boat. And that's all it is. It's a simple putting the wooden plug if you've got it attached to that through hull fitting.
Well, Terry, the good thing about if you're ever walking off your boat for a week or two, there's a big shower there, hot water shower, and you can actually run like 15 or 20 litres of warm water down into your toilet, and that'll break up or get rid of most of that salt water in the system. That will stop that calcification.
Don't use salt water.
So yeah, well, if your boat's handy enough to have a freshwater flush system, by all means. But yeah, if you're walking off your boat for a week or two, just run 10 or 15 litres of 3 or 4 bowlfuls of fresh water through the system, and that'll certainly help with that calcification process.
It's a great idea. You learn something new every day. So a bit like running your outboard motor, isn't it?
Yeah, a bit of a freshwater flush.
Yeah, freshwater flush. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. So that's sort of day one. So we've been on the boat and we've done the briefing. We normally do a briefing before we go on the boat. And usually that is just sort of, making sure that, hey, why are you here? What's the reason you're doing a 5-day course, so that we make sure we achieve the outcomes, that you're on the right course. It's standard practice to mix competent crew with a day skipper. So, you might be wanting your OCC certificate, but hey, what's the most important part? Is bringing the other half, and they can come on as a comp crew, because if they don't understand to work the systems. You jump off the plane in Guadeloupe in the Caribbean, you're tired, you've had 24 hours on a plane, or it seems like a week. The first thing you do is don't jump straight on the boat. You wait 2 days, and go and talk to the local fishermen, find out what system you are, ILA system A or B, which side of the red buoy you're going. And you know, the family's comfortable, and you know, the family and kids might fly in, you know, which they do regularly with me, which is fantastic. And you know, you just want to just get that homework done before you go on a trip, and you know, make sure the other half's totally comfortable, and the kids if you can, with all the systems on the boat. How to stack the fridge, you know, such a critical thing. You know, just fill it full of beer. No, I'm just joking. But you know, how to start the barbecue, you know, how to use the heads. You know, don't leave the hatch open at night, because you're going to walk around in this beautiful place and all of a sudden with a glass of wine you disappear down the hatch. There's nothing more painful than one leg's out of the hatch and one's down the hatch. I can tell you. I've done it a few times. So, you know, just that little briefing and spending 5 days on a boat before you, yeah, it's just essential, I think, to have a good outcome with the family. You know, people in the Caribbean, I've seen them, you know, they go out and hit the wrong side of the red buoy because they forgot which system they were. And it's difficult because you've got the British Virgin Islands right beside the US Virgin Islands, and they're different systems. And you hit the wrong side and rip the keel off. I mean, your friends are never going to sail with you again, and I guarantee your family won't. So, you know, it's just, you know, just one of the dots, just the homework, just the planning, the training. You know, it's all good. So, Brett, we've gone through the provisioning. We stacked the boat. We've everyone's gears down below in a cabin. And in COVID, you know, we have a situation where, you know, we're allowed to operate in some restrictions areas that with a certain number of people on the boat. So a family can share one cabin, but you can't share a cabin with someone not in the same residence, all right? And what we've had to do in Pittwater is, you know, sometimes 2 people get off each night, because luckily we've got another boat up there you can get off. So that's sort of helped out. But you know, what's the next step once you've done your safety briefing and you're about to head off?
Well, now the education / fun starts, Terry. Even though it is quite, you know, serious, and you know, we want to instill proper training the RYA way. I mean, we still want to make it fun and educational. And you think that when you leave school, that's when the last time you ever gets tested, other than your driver license and a few other things. But you know, people in their 40s, 50s, and 60s think I'm done with getting tested, and there's that little bit of apprehension. You know, I've got this guy looking at me for 5 days, but I mean, I try and keep the mood light, you know, and jovial, but on the same side, emphasize on safety and just some proper tuition. So the big thing, you know, down there, the CYC, there's a lot of high profile yachts, you know, it's all big pointy bits out the front, and they're all 100-footers, 80-footers, and you seem to always park me down there in a nice spot amongst all the big boats. But I mean, that's where the education starts. So, you know, going back to what you said about installing confidence, and, you know, I've got 4 or 5 people who I've never met. They may have seen a little bit about me on YouTube and other few things, and this is the first thing we teach, is how to get off the dock, you know, safely and easy. What I call low blood pressure maneuvers, just simple, you know, throttle applications. You know, this is what's going to happen. I'm going to, you know, if the breeze is doing this, I'm going to, you know, spring off the bow. The stern's going to do this. I'm going to apply that. And next thing you know, just with a few little, you know, bits and pieces, the boat's out here doing a nice little turn, and then I'm exiting out through the channel down there towards Woolloomooloo, and the faces are thinking, oh, geez, I didn't think it was that easy. And unknowingly, I've instilled confidence into my crew, and they're thinking, wow, this is going to be great. You know, 5 days, this is going to be fantastic. You know, if I went out of there and I've banged on the front of, you know, a big 100-footer yacht with a big, you know, 30-foot carbon pole out the front, they're going to be thinking, oh, you know, what's this going to be like for the next 5 days? How fast is 5 days going to finish? So it's all about instilling confidence. So we do that. So, you know, we're on our way, and we're exiting down the starboard side of the channel, and we're starting to practice cold regs just right there and then. You know, we're steering as safe as practical to the starboard side of the channel. We're doing our 4 knots. We've looked at the weather. We've had a little bit of a
4 knots.
a little bit of a talk about, what the weather's going to be like on the way up. So the last time I did a 5-day, we had about 20 to 25 knots of west southwest. So we said, look, team, immediately let's go straight to number 2 reef. And then we did that, and we had a nice sail out the harbour, got out past North Head, and we're off. And the boat was well and truly under control. The boat wasn't over accelerating, and already, this is great. Things are going really good. Good thing about Sydney Harbour, there's 4 beacons up there near a little rock called Seawind Pigs, 4 cardinal marks, planted right in the middle as an isolated danger. So we do a little loop of that. And I have a fairly good gauge of how much knowledge my crew or my candidates, if they can tell me the colours, the shapes, and especially that one in the middle, that little isolated danger, what lights will I see at night, groups of 2 sort of thing. So if I can, that's this gives a bit of a gauge on just, basic things like navigation, shapes and coal regs. If it's southwestern, we've usually done a few jibes before we've got out of the harbour. So once again, we're practicing jibes even before we've left the harbour. And then we're usually on our way. And then we tackle the way up. And by the time we get up to Pittwater, which is a beautiful training location, and it's not busy like Sydney Harbour, there's plenty of room. If it's midweek, there's virtually no one up there. And it's all the things that you can do. And it's relaxing. You don't have to worry about Sydney ferries. And we're on our way up to Pittwater. We usually spend the first night at a place called the Basin or Coasters Retreat. And that's where we stay our first night. And that's usually about just as the sun starts to go down, we're up there by then.
So, and that's got to be a beautiful entrance going around Barrenjoey, and there's a big, which I love going up there. Is just this time of year, the whales everywhere, the seals. There's a I call them a flock of seals on
that little rock.
On that little rock they call Barrenjoey. Just where they make that movie each night. It's on TV, but which is fascinating. I used to love the seals, but I found out their favourite food is my favourite animal, the fairy penguin. Anyway, it's life, I guess. But you get up into the basin, and it's just beautiful up there. And so on the second day, I mean, we have a night ashore, don't we, somewhere? We
do. So we usually, when we get to the basin, we still have internet coverage. So we have a look at our forecast for the next 4 days, and then we usually run through our itinerary. So if it's fresh winds, we'll practice our man overboard and reefing, and if we get a couple of days of lighter airs, then we'll practice mooring, anchoring, and coming alongside. But we do spend one night at the Royal Motor Yacht Club. I'm a member down there. Fantastic club down there, beautiful food, and that's where we practice coming alongside there, Terry. We book a berth for the night, and probably the greatest fear for intrepid learning catamaran owners is coming alongside. It's where that fiberglass meets the concrete that seems to worry a lot of people. And it's same thing again. It's just a few easy techniques. You look at what the wind's doing. Am I blow on? Am I blow off? Is it going to be coming over my starboard quarter? All these things you take in. What we call preparation, approach, maneuver, and the big one's escape. If it's not looking good, just be like the 747 pilots. If it's not looking good, they just hit those throttles and they go around, they do it again. So that's the big one there. But no, Royal Motor Yacht Club, really good. I remember, I think it was one of my first or second courses I took. We booked a berth out at the Royal Motor, and we had an 80-footer big Princess boat in front of us, another big 70-odd foot boat behind us, and they said, Brett, you're going into V5, and the crew says, Brett, where are we going? I said, oh, I see that spot in there, that's where we're going. They go, no, you're not. I said, yeah, just watch this. So a few simple manoeuvres, and man, I've got 5 people at the side of the boat going like that. I just back this little thing up, get a line on that stern, a bit of throttle on the outside motor, swings in, get a bow line, and we're tied up. And they couldn't believe it. It was just what I can, low blood pressure manoeuvres. So when we're backing up to the dock there, so Brent's got a good diagram there. Because we always try and do a port side tie-up, and then because that's where your throttles are, and we'll reverse up to the dock. We'll get one of those stern lines on, pretty much like that. Now, once that stern line's on, and we shorten it up, that's pretty much 90% of your docking done. because then we just apply the outside throttle, which is the starboard motor in this case, and that'll swing the bow in. So we have one of our crew members up there on the bow, ready to lasso a cleat. So we practice lasso techniques. They lasso that cleat, and then the bow's pretty much on the side, and you're pretty much alongside there. And then other than that, once the boat's secured, then we can step off. There's no leaps of faith, and we're not expecting people to do a 7-foot leap, you know, to try and get a line on the dock. Everyone stays on the boat. So this is the RYA way. Once again, it's all about safety. You know, a lot of our boats are husband-wife teams, and there's no use being a husband-wife team if, you know, one of your partners is in the drink going for a swim. Okay, so it's all about safety and nice, clear communication between you and your crew. Once again, it's preparation. You know, you look at the weather, look at your marina map, your approach. Yep, this is what the wind's doing, your maneuvers, and then escape. And you know, it's quite easy.
It's preparation is the key. You know, it's like, you know, 200 meters out, you've already got your fenders out, you've already got your lines, you've already got your key people in the right spots.
Exactly right.
And I think what we're going to do later is do one of these evenings, and Brent has offered to help us with that, is to you show you the Mediterranean park, for example, you know, where you actually put the anchor out first and reverse in, or you reverse in and pick a line that's already out in the water and you walk it up the side of the boat, and all that sort of stuff, which we'll show down the track. But as Brett's just said, you know, it's all in the preparation, and most of that you'll cover in the 5-day, because that's exactly why the RWA system's there. It's not about Sydney, it's about the Mediterranean, parking in Greece or Croatia or anywhere in the world, and particularly the Med, because it's all reverse parking pretty well.
Great thing about the Cats is that 2 motors 6 meters apart, they do turn on themselves quite easily. I mean, this is another key area that we practice quite consistently. Every day you'll be doing, you know, hands-on with the throttles, learning just how to spin these boats around. Very, very easy. I think there is one of those videos there that shows Serendipity leaving our marina here. It's in quite a tight position, and you know, Jason does it quite well. You know, just how you spring off on the stern. You just pin that stern in nice and tight. You know, get your bow clear, bit of throttle, and out you go. And your trip started off on a good note. You know, you don't want to be having sort of, you know, tribal council with your wife even before the trip started. Now you just want to you say, look, this is what's going to happen. I'm going to do this. This is going to happen, and you're off. And it's all about instilling confidence.
I think the partner is really important, as I said before. You know, to get these skills. I mean, you can enjoy your holiday a lot more if you know how to pick him up if he goes for a swim. You know, you're going to know how to, you know, use that little finger to say, hey, put the anchor out more, and then turn the finger up and come back here now and get happy already. You know, I think, you know, both people, it's really good. And I think, as I said last week, you know, in Croatia, we had, and it's good to have 2 people with your ICC on a boat. You know, last Croatia trip, just before COVID, you know, my other skipper, instructor, Brian McMahon, he unfortunately swallowed a bit of steak out in the island somewhere, three islands out, and we had to fly him in emergency to the hospital in Croatia. Now, but fortunately, I had another guy on the boat who had finished his day skipper and had his ICC, so we're able to continue on. So there's little things you need to sort of think about. So that's great, Brett, so far. So day 2, 3, 4, day 5, we're heading back to Sydney, I guess. But what are we doing those other 3 days?
So yeah, very important to learn the RYA way of reefing. So this is a very important skill to learn. You know, you're sailing along, you know, you see that breeze is starting to pick up, boat's starting to get a little bit overpowered. How to reef on the run. Okay, the great thing about these boats is our single line reefing system. Boat has 3 reefs up there on the boom, and the reef lines run down the side of the boat there. So this is reef 1 and reef 3 on the port side, and number 2 runs down the starboard side. So we spend probably half a day doing reefing, and we rotate the crew and the comp crew and the day skipper around. So each one has a go of doing either easing halyard, or winding on the reef. And the most important thing is assigning someone responsible who can steer the boat on a steady course, close hauled. So we're sailing on the jib only. And this spot comes back to what Terry said about learning to sail. I've seen many people who can't hold a straight line, and I, give them every chance to prove to them. But if you're wandering close hauled, then you stall, then you're bearing away, it makes it hard to put a reef in. So it's very important we get someone on the helm who can sail a boat close hauled, ease the traveller, ease the main sheet, put the reef in, then center the traveller, bring the main and start sailing. And we make it fun by having time competitions, so you can do it the quickest. I think we've done it in just over a minute. Some very quick people. So just try and make it a bit of fun. All the while, our comp crew are practicing how to tie their knots, various parts of the sail, just those little basic things. So if someone says, can you ease the jib sheet, they'll know where to go and what to do. That's very important. So we do reefing. Man overboard's another big aspect. Really no need to go over the side in these boats. All these boats have 800 mil high lifelines, which totally enclose the boat. So unless you really want to go for a swim, there's no real need to go over the side in these boats. But if someone does happen to go over the side, not so much for these boats, but for any other boat, is picking up a man overboard or a person overboard the proper way. Going up, doing your tack, going downwind, doing another tack, and picking them up, underneath the leeward hull, there sort of thing, employing any sort of first aid. So that's probably the big thing. Picking up moorings, you think that's an easy thing, but you still watch people and they still go about it the wrong way. They're either picking up going downwind, too much boat speed, ripping the arms off the person up the front because they're still doing 3 knots coming up to the mooring. So just great thing about these boats is from the helm, you can actually see the mooring right up until it's at the front beam there, and just good communication between yourself and your person up the front. On my boat, actually my missus does all the helming and the throttles, and I'm just up the front there with the hook. So once again, if something happens to me, she can pick up a mooring.
Are you any good at the cheese and happy hour when you come back, or?
Yeah, do all that. So it's a fairly big sort of day. We usually start up about 8:30 in the morning. We usually start wrapping up about 8:30 at night. And we pack a fair bit into it. It's just not a cruise up the coast and sitting back, watching the waterfalls. There's a fair bit that goes on. We do have a syllabus I have to get through, and I need to make sure that everyone can do this, once or twice. And there's always that odd occasion when that little man overboard bucket can pop out at any time and go over side, and off we go again. Man overboard. Whoa, let's go.
And of course, you as the instructor on board, you're required to assess the people as you go. And sometimes people take shortcuts, like say, just do that keelboat skipper course because you're sailing. I'm a bit unsure about your skills in sailing because of the amount of sailing you've done. You've crewed on 20 Hobarts, and I found out really you were the cook like me, or you've done the topping lift on the winch. So he's got to assess that, and what we're trying to do is send you out to be safe, and I know you want to be safe for a 2-week charter anywhere in the world. So that's the important thing. So if you're short, you won't get the certificate, but we'll have a full debriefing at the end of the 5-day, and we'll say, hey, okay, here's where you're short, and probably if you do the keelboat skipper course and prove that you can jibe, and you should have finished your day skipper theory, we can't give you a certificate till that happens. And really we shouldn't have given it to you anyway, because we really need to assess you of your theory application in a practical way during that 5-day. We've had guys who've failed the 5-day 2 or 3 times, and one guy, he actually came back, got it on the 4th time, and then he's been back 2 or 3 other times to sail with the other instructors because he just loves being out in these beautiful boats. Fantastic. Which is really, really good. So it's a real pleasure to have those.
You're right there, Terry. It is all about safety. And when you do go sailing, you can be a long way from anywhere, whether it's just up the coast of Queensland or on your way to New Caledonia. Things like doing jibes, controlled jibes. I mean, these boats have a lot of power with those big roachy mainsails, and if you don't do that jibe properly, the RYA way, going downwind, finding where the edge of the no-go zone, you can, destroy parts of your boat quite easily. You can send parts of your traveller into orbit if you don't, do a job properly, and then you're out there in the ocean, and then you've got problems. So, I mean, all this stuff, goes back to sailing safety.
It certainly does, and it's. I remember the early days. You jive and you could take out your cap shrouds, and then your mast went over the side. I lost a few masts, but yeah. So, and it's very dangerous. A swinging boom is extremely dangerous, and we're really lucky on the cats because you've got a big, cockpit. What do you call it over the top there?
Your big target bar.
Yeah, a big target bar over the top. But imagine somebody sitting up on the top there. But what we don't appreciate is the danger. If it swings across, as Brett said, it pulls the traveller out of the deck, and then it is a swinging 1 ton bloody boom that's going to cause all sorts of strife in extreme conditions. And you can't send someone up to put a rope around it because they'll end up you won't see them again.
Yeah, so the thing with the cats is we do use a lot of traveller. You see on monos, the traveller might only be 4 to 6 foot long. These extend the length of the reef, the width of the reef, sorry. So we do use our travellers quite a fair bit on the cats. We don't have backstays. So
you don't have boom bangs either, really, do you?
No, don't have bangs, don't have backstays. So we do rely quite a bit on that main traveller.
And I think that's a fantastic thing because do we have a shot where we can look up the mast to see early days the cross spreaders were straight out from the mast. There we go, beautiful shot. And as you can see that it's the spreaders are well swept back, which means the cap shrouds and lower shrouds come down probably a metre behind the mast foot. And you've got your forestay, and so it's allowed the boats to be set up so they don't have to have running backstays. Running backstays mean they come back from 3/4 of the way up the mast back to another position on the deck, and you've got to have a coordinated crew to be able to let off one running backstay when you jibe. And a lot of masts have been lost over the years because of that. And in racing boats, that's fairly common. But in cruising boats these days, as you can see in that shot, the spreaders are way swept back, which is allowed for cruising. And see the little lines that come down onto the boom cover there. They're called what do you call them?
Lazy jacks.
Lazy jacks. And Jenny Carey invented those for the moorings in the Caribbean when I was there with her in '77, and that became a standard thing with all the moorings boats around the world, which are about 700. And it's just such a fantastic thing because you drop the main, it just fills into that cover, and then you just get up there at the end of the day and zip it up. And you don't have all these running backstays, etc. You've got a backstay, and that's about it. But the way these masts are set up, they're really, really good.
So the cats there, we put a bit of rake on the mast with the forestay, so you actually see. I don't know that boat, but yeah. So we actually rake the mast back a little bit, and then we put what we call pre-bend. So it looks a bit like a banana, not a lot, but you can see how we put pre-bend, and this is what tensions up to the mast since we don't have a backstay. But it's not, we don't dwell too much on that, but that's just part of the rigging of the cats. Not so much the resort boat, but anyway, yeah. So if you look at the cats, you'll see they're raked back, and then again they put some pre-bend in it, and that's to strengthen the mast up, a bit like a dam wall. They put that bend in it to relieve the tension. But going back to our syllabus, so once we're happy with anchoring and mooring and other bits and pieces, we start concentrating on some of our collision regulations. Port, starboard, windward, leeward, overtaking. We do a bit of lights at night. Go through our whether the lights are flashing, fixed, occulting, ISO phase. Great thing about Sydney Harbour is that all of the lights you'll need to see pretty much around the world are found in Sydney Harbour. Bradley's Head, occulting, the safe water mark there, ISO phase. A great one is Grotto Point when we come in. It's a fantastic light to do that, and we all do that at night time. So once we're done with our 4 days up at Pittwater, we leave just after dark. head around Barrenjoey, and then, you know, if the weather's nice, we can have a beautiful sail back down to Sydney Harbour, and then we, with our passage plan, you know, passage plan's not it's not an encyclopedia, just some basic, you know, notes. You know, any dangers along the way? Do I need to be certain, you know, amount of miles offshore to give myself a safe berth from Long Reef? You know, just work our way into Sydney Harbour. Is the tide coming in? You know, what do I expect to see? What's the first lights? Yeah, sure. We'll pick up Macquarie Light, and then we'll pick up the ISO green off the top of North Head. Come around the corner, pick up that beautiful light there called Hornby, LFL 5S, long flash every 5 seconds. And then we, you know, work our way into Sydney Harbour. Usually head down the East Channel. There's 2 nice big fixed reds up there near Vaucluse. And then once everyone can, you know, we have a go at picking all these lights, then we head off to bed somewhere for the night. It's usually around about midnight by the time we finish up. And then the next day we do a bit of revision. And if we have, you know, anything that needs to brush up on, we have another go at that. And that's usually the end of our 5 days. So, I mean, we pack quite a fair bit into it. You know, everyone gets to have 2 or 3 goes of everything. And once again, it's all about the safety. You know, I'm not too worried if you don't get it right the first time. It's just how safe you do it.
So, Brett, and so when we come back in, you know, we like to, I mean, you'd go on these, even if you weren't doing. Of course, these boats are just so luxurious these days. I mean, this boat, you know, the Seawinds, you know, got the American #1 multi-hull in the world, you know, last year or the year before, might have been. You know, it just so, you know, it's amazing. It's just a thing to do if you can do it. You know, just do it now. You know, we're a long time, mate.
Yeah, well, I mean, from a sailing aspect, everything's where you need it.
Yeah.
You know, like the controls are right there. So if you're doing your docking, you're not up on some sort of god pod where you can't, you know, quickly access. And everything's right there if you need it. You can see, you know, you can look forward to that port bow. You can look aft. You got 2 big winches right there for your main sheet and your main halyard. You got all your electronics there on the dash. That window comes down quite nicely. Then, you know, all your electrics are there. You know, wind, autopilot. We do some electronic nav. You know, just showing you how just to use the autopilot and steer to a go-to. So just some basic sort of stuff. I try and not get too much fixated on electronics. People get, you know, keep looking at those dashes, and I say, no, just look at the sails. But, you know, they're great to have. But yeah, we still learn how to sail just by those telltales and, you know, looking at the jib and what those things. But yeah, we've got radios there. So we do a bit of VHF work. Nice big TV if you want to watch a bit of Hornblower, Master and Commander. That's all it goes to. Anyway, that's all good fun. But then down there on the right is our system. So we every morning someone monitors our battery usage overnight.
Tell us a bit about the power.
So these boats usually have 675 amp hours of battery. So you can see here, this is our control panel. So we've got our fridge on at the moment. All our lights there, our anchor light, steering light, spreader and nav. Our instruments, autopilot.
Vale.
So this boat's equipped with 240 power there, so our inverter's up the top up there. But we have solar, 800 watts on the roof, and so it's a constant, you know, addition, subtraction. So, you know, during the night, let's see how much we started off with. Let's see what we end up with. Let's see what happens through the day if we get a nice sunny day. So you're the Minister for Energy.
¿Tienes que saber más cosas? Joder.
1.
Perdona, que estoy en una
You can hear you talking. 1.
Sorry.
Put yourself on mute.
Sorry.
Yeah, so there's solar power up there on the roof.
Just did coastal skippers. Sorry, mate. Go ahead.
Yeah, so when you're in charge, you're the Minister for Energy. You're the Minister for Water. You're probably the Minister for Morale, all these sorts of things. So yeah, you just got to, when you're unplugged and you're on your way out there, you just got to, you know, make sure that what's going out gets replenished the next day. And that's where you monitor it from here. So that panel will show you your water, you know, your battery levels, what's going in, what's going out. So it's not very complex. It's just pretty easy to read. So each day someone has a go of just understanding what that panel means in the way of power.
So if you're going to Lord Howe,
Going to
Oh, yeah.
Lord Howe?
the only other things we really need to add to the boat as we're set up is really a storm jib, which we have on each trip.
Yep.
And a trysail, I would have recommended for people if they're going on long cruising on their own boat. And my suggestions for the trysail is just another mainsail, but it's about a tenth the size. And what I suggest to people is you pop rivet a new track on the side of the existing track, because it's impossible to pull all the slides off the mast. For 2 people, let alone 10 people in 40 knots of breeze. And you just put a separate track, and it's only about 3 meters the size of the luff of your trysail, and you have, you know, separate sheets which are attached to your trysail, and that you don't even have to have a boom. You know, it goes straight down to your quarter blocks or spinnaker blocks. And you know, when I used to teach 5 days, I've had weekends where, you know, before, you know, we sort of weren't allowed to sail offshore in more than 35 knots. You know, I put the trysail and storm jib up, and I've spent 5 days sailing with that. It was fantastic. So, you know, I think, you know, if you're buying a boat, make sure, you know, you're prepared properly.
Yep. I've taken my boat over to Lord Howe. Yeah, most of the time I just had a good weather window, just had about 20 to 25 knots of southwest, and just had half my Janara up for most of the trip over. Pretty much just left the maid in the bag most of the time. But very, very comfortable. Just slow the boat down. You know, thing with sailing offshore, if you do extended cruising, is just sail at 70%. No need to be driving the boat hard. You know, I mean, you got to think, you know, you got to take care of your boat, take care of your crew.
Okay, that's pretty good. So you get a logbook, the ROA logbook. I just, no, I'm not going to share it up. Everyone knows what the ROA logbook looks like. We issue you with the day skipper, either Commodore Cruise certificate at the end of the 5 day, the day skipper practical certificate, and then you can apply for the International Certificate of Competence. We usually give you the form. You pay your £46. In 3 to 4 weeks, you get your International Certificate of Competence, which you know, which is a requirement if you're chartering overseas. But it's a lifetime thing, as I said, and every 5 years, they'll send you an email, pay the £46, and you're way to go. I mean, even Greece, Portugal, and Spain signed up to the Resolution 40 last year. So did China and America this year. Australia hasn't signed up to it, but no doubt government will find out down the track. So, but even New Caledonia, Vanuatu, you have to have a ICC. So that's the tip. Now, what I'd like to move on to now, and that's fantastic, and thank you for that, Brett. I think that's a great presentation. It's open up. I'm going to stop the recording now, and it'd be great to invite you to just sort of turn your, let me turn it off.